I'm Joe. I'm a compulsive eater. I weigh and measure 3 meals a day from the gray sheet. I commit them to my sponsor. I don't eat no matter what. And abstinence is the most important thing in my life. I was taught to give a qualification based on what it was like, how I got here, and what it's like now. Just a very simple format. For me, I grew up in a big family, lots of siblings. My mother was extremely overweight. I always saw her walking out of the bathroom at night after her baths, and her stomach hung very low and her body was like small and really round. And my dad died of a heart attack when he was about 45 and I was 4.5. And when my dad died, he was the primary caretaker of me. I was his namesake. And my mother was very heavily pregnant with the last baby. So I sort of lost my dad to, to this heart attack. He was well over 300 pounds. And I lost my mom to grief and a new baby. And I think that double loss was when the light switch of the addiction just sort of turned on in my body. And I remember when the baby was a baby, maybe 2, 3 years old, and I was 5 years older. So maybe I was like 7 and 8. I remember she wasn't finishing whatever was on her plate for dessert, and I was always wanting to eat whatever was left on her plate. And take that story and extrapolate on and on. And I was eating to comfort myself. I was eating to parent myself. I was eating to solve the hole in my heart where my dad belonged. And my mother was abusive. She was physically abusive. She was emotionally abusive. And because she never bonded with me, because she lost a baby right before I was born. I was a rainbow baby. There was a baby that died, and then I was born right away. So she was still grieving the baby that died and never bonded with me. So my dad kind of overcompensated. So when he dropped dead, I really didn't have a bonded parent-daughter experience with my mother. And she didn't like me. So because I was difficult, because I was a kid that was like kind of spirited and really bonded to my dad. And so the deal was that I lived in a household with a parent that was unstable, a rageaholic, a compulsive overeater, super violent, really quite a lot. And so, the way that I responded was fight or flight, running away a lot, like being with my dog in the woods, gone, gone, gone. And around 6th grade or so, she found a husband, and they didn't get married yet, but they were dating. And I felt like I was losing the shred of a parent that I had to this other relationship where she was just totally dedicated to this guy. And I started eating with a vengeance. In 6th grade, I gained 100 pounds in 2 years. And I went into 9th grade as a probably well over 250 pounds with my body extremely blown up, like very blown up. My face, I used to wear turtlenecks up underneath my chin. And I wore all these long clothes, and I was hot all the time, and I was miserable. I would come home from school and I would just eat all through the house. And that's how the morbid obesity began. And by the time I graduated from high school, I was well over 300 pounds. And when I was speaker of the class at my college graduation, I was well over 300 pounds, maybe 320 or something like that. It was like bigger than the podium as the speaker. And then I went on to law school and I joined Jenny Craig, and I thought things would be different. And they were for a little while, and I lost some weight, and then I graduated from that institution, well over 300 pounds. I would just kind of go up and down like 50 or 60 pounds every 3 years or something. And then I joined the workforce and I got a big job, and I thought it was all going to be better. And I lost a bunch of weight from a geographic and getting my own space and all this other stuff. And I ended up putting all that weight back on and more while my mom was dying of cancer. So my mom died when I was 27. I was 24 when I graduated from law school and passed the bar exam and had the job and was driving back and forth to Vermont. Thank you. And it was really an extremely difficult time in my life because I was living by myself. I had all the time and space in the world to be by myself, not going to events, amassing foods, eating them weirdly in my apartment by myself, like lining up things along the couch and, just eating in a really sort of like ritualistic way and wedging myself on the couch and traveling back and forth between the refrigerator and the couch and the TV and just sitting around and feeling like, my body was just like getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and my mom was dying. And the deal is that very shortly before, maybe like a year before my mom's death, she spoke to reporters in the healthcare system in Canada, and she was interviewed by the news. And my mom talked about the fact that she thought that sugar caused cancer and she was dying of cancer. So she said, I think sugar causes cancer. My mom stopped eating sugar and flour and got into a normal sized body-ish for the first time I'd ever seen her in my life. And it put this idea in my brain. So at that time I was 27 when she finally did pass away. A week later, after the funeral, my neighbor, who was friends with a GreySheeter, asked me if I wanted to go to a meeting in Harvard Square, put me in the car, and I drove to Harvard Square. That was 1 week after my mother had died, and I was an orphan. And I was 335 pounds. I had been exercising like crazy at Mike's gym down the road. I could not lose any weight, and I did not know why I got in the car. Pure grace of God. I had no idea why I got in that car. He told me that his friend did this thing with food and he thought it might help me. And I said, okay, stranger, neighbor, I'll get in your car and like drive to Harvard Square to what? I didn't even know what I was going to. I didn't know it was a 12-step meeting. I didn't know it was GreySheet. I didn't know anything about it. It was just that he said that he had a friend that did this thing with food that he thought would be helpful for me. So I got in the car and I went, and I heard the first woman qualify who was 300 pounds. She was 300 pounds. She was mean. She was just like me, stealing people's food, like her sisters, whatever, the whole story. And it was the first time I ever heard somebody say that they were physically allergic to sugar, flour, and grain, and that when they ate it, they couldn't stop eating it. They would just keep eating it, and they had compulsion to continue to eat it. It was the first time I ever heard somebody talk about the food in a way that I ate the food. You know what I mean? Because I didn't get to be the size I was with like any kind of, lack of effort. I was eating all the time. It was a full-time job. I could not, it was very hard to keep my body as big as it was because I was just eating and eating and eating and eating, and I couldn't stop. There was nothing I could do to stop. The only reason why I got in that car to go to that meeting that day is because I knew the gig was up. I knew that I no longer could restrict and actually successfully lose weight. I was eating against my own will. I was promising myself every single day that I would not eat, and then I would eat. And that was the deal. So anyway, little skinny blonde girls outside the meeting talking to me about things I did not understand, like, last house on the block and all this stuff. I just didn't understand it, but I did understand big girl, ex-big girl from the front of the room. And she was beautiful. And I was by far the biggest person. And I was hooked. I went to like 4 meetings, and then I went up to one of the little skinny girls with the good arms and I said, honey, I don't know what I'm doing here. I don't even know what you do with food. I have absolutely no idea what any of this even means. I would just listen to the meetings and I would just be like, oh my God, these people are me. I never knew anybody say it was a disease. I always thought I had lack of willpower. I always thought I sucked as a person because I couldn't lose weight. I always thought I was like subpar individual, second-class citizen, the whole thing, because other people could get it together and I could not. So this person, you know, with the good arm, she told me, she said, honey, this is what you do. And she sat down and she showed me a gray sheet. It was like the gray sheet of paper. That's what it is. Just a gray sheet of paper with a bunch of foods on a list, low carbohydrate food plan made in the early 70s. And she just went through and she said, this is how you do this. This is what you do. This is the condiments you should use. Thank you. This is all the things that you do. And I just started weighing and measuring my food. And she said, if you weigh and measure your food for 30 days and just give it a try, let's see how you do. And if you want to go back eating the way that you were eating, we'll gladly refund you your misery. You can have it back, honey. She said, like, just do this for 30 days. You can do anything for 30 days. And I felt like that, you know, because I was full of will, like in every area of my life. I was just full of it. So I just said, okay, fine. I'm going to do this thing for 30 days. Well, I lost 18 pounds, then I lost 21 pounds, then I lost 17 pounds. And I was like 60 pounds less in 3 months. And I would come into that Saturday morning meeting and just show them my jeans. I just would walk in and I'd be like, it's the jeans report, girls. This is the way it is. Mostly girls there, only a couple of boys, but at least in Cambridge. So that's the deal. Okay, so that's the physical part. It works because it's a low carbohydrate food plan with boundaries around quantity. So quality of the food, what you're eating, and quantity of what your food. That's the two-pronged approach. That's why it works. So the food plan definitely works. But then what do you do? I mean, what do? You lost all that weight. And then how do you deal with it? If it's just a diet, we could all just do that, you know, takes care of the physical, but then you've got to gain all the tools for living. And, you know, if, you know, we in Cambridge, the way that I grew up and learned is basically like put the plug in the jug, just get abstinent. Don't worry about all the rest of that stuff. It'll come. Get abstinent, take a good long time to get abstinent, and then finally you'll find all these other pieces. But there are other pieces. There's a spiritual piece. There's a spiritual lack of values. There's the mental obsession that goes along with it. It's all part of the addiction, and it's okay. I mean, if you read the literature around, you know, the parent organization, Alcoholics Anonymous, you will see that a lot of the literature speaks directly to us. You just replace the word food and you start reading about it. And it's like, yeah, we do have those things. You know, if we could do it on our own, we could. Like really the people that are here that are abstinent longer term, what they're doing is they're using a community, they're using a higher power. They're trying to plug into God, into the higher power, like really practicing step 11, doing that kind of stuff. And, you know, they're relying on a sponsor to make decisions about their food. And so really they're turning all of those things over. That's kind of how it works. You know, I'll just say a few things about staying abstinent in really, really difficult, adverse situations. Now, I started off as a 335-pound person and I was very young. So I know what it was like where people treated me as a morbidly obese person. And then bam, I was cute. I was 27 and I was cute. And they would be like holding doors and talking to me and directly looking at me. And I had to adjust to the world as a person that looks like a regular person. Now, I had not looked like a regular person since I was 11, and I went to a lot of therapy. I've gone to therapy almost consistently for my entire time that I've been abstinent, which is 20 years, you know, like I don't have back-to-back abstinence. I had a relapse in 2008. But since 2001, I've been weighing and measuring all my food. I had a 1 meal relapse, which is absolutely legit, absolutely relapse. And that's why I count my time from 2008. But for 20 years, I've been in therapy. And a lot of it was about my body, but a lot of it was about the behaviors of all the things that I was holding on to in order to be able to live in the world. And there were a lot of those things that I've had to work through, all those things. Now, so no matter what, big no matter what, thank you so much, big no matter what was my body size, big no matter what was cancer, chemo, radiation, therapy, you know, the whole drill, getting married, losing sweethearts, you know, before that, becoming a step parent, most recently being informed by my stepdaughter that I'm no longer somebody that she wants to have a close relationship with, which has been devastating for me. I have ridden a double century bike ride to raise money for Dana-Farber, which is the institute that I was that I was treated at in Brookline. I've gone through trauma therapy. I have done, I don't know, 2 job changes, a couple of big jobs, bought a house, I don't know, everything. Rode roller coasters, jumped out of airplanes, did triathlons, rode down the raft rivers, weighed and measured out of trucks. I mean, whatever. I've done so many cool things, so many interesting things. Thank you. And I feel so grateful to be abstinent. And I recommend that you just keep coming, keep trying, keep weighing and measuring your food. It does get easier, I promise. So thanks.